Um, I actually started out as a product designer, industrial designer, and that was my background. So I was able to use my art skills and also mechanical. It's kind of a combination of art design and mechanical design. So it was a good combination for me, and I enjoyed my years. I had my own business for 30 years, and I worked for corporations before that. And when I got near the
credit card, press 3. For technical
let's see.
So I am muting people as they come in. If you want to wait till it gets started for questions, and unmute yourself for that, then mute yourself right away, or else we'll hear every little snap, crackle, and pop or doggy bark in your home.
Okay, so I'll shut up for a while.
You're fine. Please, Ed, continue.
Oh, okay. So I won't go into too much detail here, but that was my background as far as, and I had some training in school of painting, but not much. And it was mostly commercial artwork. I painted watercolors, acrylics, and I've settled on oil painting for a lot of reasons, which I won't go into now, but I'm using a water mixable oil. It's a linseed oil base product. It works just like a regular petroleum base linseed oil paint. And they've somehow been able to emulsify it so that you can use water to mix it and or clean up. And I hardly ever thin out my paint, but you can do it with water. You can actually do a semi-watercolor. But I do it mostly because of the solvents and things that I used when I was doing commercial work, and it's affected my health. So it might be a good idea to investigate something like that. You don't have to use any turpentine or some of the other products now that don't smell as bad, but they're really not good for you. So if you paint indoors in a closed studio, you ought to pay attention to that because it can be bad. Anyway, and not to mention the colors themselves are made from all sorts of bad things. So I wear rubber gloves when I paint, and the same goes for pastels, by the way. And watercolors have the same bad. They have cadmium, and I don't know. I'm not sure how bad titanium is, but of course, lead-based permanent white is another one. Anyway, so I try to stay away from stuff like that. And anyway, it's a water mixable product. Winsor and Newton, I think, is the best manufacturer around. They always have been. I used a lot of products from them for commercial work. And I've been seriously painting for probably a good 20 years. And I've gone from watercolors to acrylics to water-based oils. And I'm in a couple of galleries, one in Los Gatos here and one in Walnut Creek. And I've been in shows and done demos and done a whole bunch of stuff. And the result of that is that I am so glad I didn't pick painting as a profession. I hate to say that publicly, but it's a very hard life if you rely on selling artwork for a living. And I mean, you can teach, and I did some of that too in the commercial design. But I've heard from well-known painters that painting, if you don't teach, you have to do workshops, you have to do something for a stream of income. So anyway, and I'm happy with the business side of it. I mean, sell paintings once in a while, but not often, and I enjoy doing it. So I'm going to keep doing it. And that's another thing. When you get old like me, you can still paint as long as you can lift your arm and your eyes are good in shape. Anyway, that's about it.
That's great, Ed. Thank you. So we've practiced turning the camera and getting it on where he'll be working next. We sent the reference photo out in an email, so you all received that earlier.
You can go ahead and turn your camera to the easel now if you want.
Okay, yeah.
Because we're all eager to see you work.
No, okay.
That looks good, Ed.
Okay, I've still had this, this meeting is being recorded flag on here. How do I get that off?
Don't worry about that.
Okay, well, I can't see what I'm doing though, but it's not too important, I guess, but I mean, I can't see what's happening on the screen here.
Oh.
Okay, well, we'll just,
That actually looks good. You're more in focus on the screen, and sorry you can't see what you're doing on the video, but we can see what you're doing.
If
Okay.
there's a red button on the side that it says agree or okay, or that you could push that and I think it goes away.
where do I push? There's a video symbol up in the left corner.
Right,
And
we're
No,
recording.
that's,
I don't think it needs.
I don't think you need to worry about it, Ed. I think that's the way it's going to be for you.
okay. Oh, here we go again. God damn it.
If you're able to look up at your screen, you'll see that taking the dominant area. So those of you who joined in a little bit later, Ed paints with water soluble oils, Winsor Newton. It's going to be interesting to hear about the photo that he took for this and how he uses it as a diving board. And he has some thumbnails to be showing us when he's set up.
I'm trying to get the meeting back here.
Oh, we can see you fine, Ed.
Okay, here we go. All right. I'm not going to touch the stupid mouse anymore. And yeah, so were you going to do the business part of the meeting or?
Oh, we're done that. We're into the meat now. That's
Oh,
you.
okay. Okay, well, I have a board to just show how I work. I have a little board I put together of thumbnails that I do most of the time for paintings, and some little ink drawings, and you know, big and small. But and I have a little rough I did here of a mountain lake, Eastern Sierra. Let's see if I can.
You do value studies and color.
Little value studies and just design on the page. And it helps sometimes I don't follow them, but I did this Carmel Mission with a sky. I thought I'd do some stormy sky thing with a low evening light. And I did a couple, 3 versions of that, and sometimes they don't work. And often I use the thumbnail, but I don't really follow it sometimes. This Alpine Lake here, I have the finished painting of it. This is on the Eastern Sierra, and I kind of faked it with the mountains and everything. I didn't follow exactly the way they look, but the idea was the photograph doesn't really. It looks something like this, but it wasn't a dead ringer. The scene was what I remembered, and the photograph reminded me of what it was like. So readjust everything here again.
So Ed, that's how you use the photograph as a springboard, or what you're seeing as a springboard to producing the painting that you want.
Right, and sometimes I'll use it more literally, but often I don't. And it's Yeah, as a painting, I mean, you probably know this, when you start the painting, you really don't know sometimes how it's going to end up. And you change it over, sometimes for the better, sometimes not, but you change it as you go and you adjust things, the lighting and the light and shadow. And this drawing I have on here is kind of a rough idea. I know what the composition is going to be like, but as you can see in the photograph here, that it's not really represented exactly as it is. It's very vague here, and the buildings are not in proportion to the way I have them here. So a lot of times I will start a painting when I have a thumbnail. I'll start a painting and sometimes change the whole idea of the thing partway through. Change the composition, change the lighting, and you can do that more easily with oils, but watercolors, it's a little bit different. Get that the way we had it here, and I don't see it. I don't know what happened. It was closer.
I think that's good right there, Ed.
Okay, I'm trying to see if lowering and raising this thing would get it better. I had this all set up and now it's not.
You know, it's looking good. We can see it, and it might get jostled again as you tap it. That's what happens with cameras. You know, sometimes they give a little shake or something.
Why don't you
Well,
lower
yeah,
your easel a little, Ed, instead of playing with the camera? Lower your painting a little bit. Oh, no, it's right there. Don't touch it anymore. Stop. There we go. It's good.
All right. Okay. Again, my brushes are Princeton. I use Princeton. These are called bright. Let's see. They have a series 6300 series. I like them because they're springy and they don't seem to wear out very much, and they're not very expensive either. So it's got a whole lot of good things going for it. They're a synthetic bristle also. They're not natural. I've tried natural bristles. They seem to lay over when you paint with them. They stay bent. And anyway, I just haven't had good luck with them. And I found these. I really like them. They clean out well, and they're not that expensive, so you don't have to baby them that much. Anyway, I'm going to get going here. I've got my palette and I've got my my little box of paints here. That's one of those Masterson airtight boxes, and I can keep the paint in there for probably a good week. It'll stay workable, and I have a feeling you could probably use it for watercolors too, if that's how you paint. So I'm going to start getting these mountains roughed in back here, the hills, and I want them to recede from the painting. So I'm going to use a lot of cool greens and blues and some titanium and get some modeling. I've got a light that's coming in from this side. I think you're getting a mirror image here, but it'll be coming in from this side of the painting, which it would anyway. It's a south light. So anyway, I'm going to start with cerulean blue and a little sap green and some titanium white and get some shadow going on the this side of the painting. So some cerulean and sap green, and put some little titanium in there. And I'm just going to really rough these in really quickly. So sometimes you end up with some happy little accidents that you can make use of. You have to pay attention to when you're putting it down, but a lot of times if you don't be too careful, you end up with some nice little grooves and things that that you can use. And you can always go back and so here, this is the cerulean and sap green and titanium white. And I'm just going to rough these in real quick, and we can do some lightning on the.
Ed, if you can paint your heads right in the middle of the camera.
Yeah, okay. Again, you hold your brush like a tennis racket, and that way you don't get too fussy. So these look kind of funny right now, but we can put some light in there, light titanium, mix it in and mush this. I mix on the canvas a lot too. I don't pre-mix a lot of, just shout at me if I'm getting in the way, but I generally will mix a lot of paint and then mix things on the canvas. That goes for foliage or
And you put a little green in that sky, huh? Do you always do that?
these are still the hills back here. There won't be any sky in here. So
Sorry.
I'm gonna mush this in here now. And keep my drawing enough so I can see kind of where it is. Now we're going to lighten this up quite a bit here, but get this roughed in. We got some titanium white here. I'm going to mix a little cad yellow. Let's see, what do they call this? Cad yellow hue is kind of a orangey. So just pick up what we just put down there and
Are you using anything to thin the paint at all?
to thin it. No, I don't. I generally use it right out of the tube. Am I getting in the way here? I can't see what I'm doing here.
Yes, yeah, you are.
Oh, okay. So I'm adding a little warm to this. So cad yellow hue, I'm adding to the.
Ed, do these water soluble oils stay as wet as oils?
They just like regular oil base. I mean, they're linseed oil base. I don't know.
So they take a long time to dry?
They take a long time to dry, and there's no, as far as I know, there's no, and I've never used a something to speed them up either. You can do that with acrylics, I know, but. I can see why my head keeps getting in the way here. It's okay, I'm not going to spend much time here. I'm going to get going on, I'm going to get everything kind of roughed in here and then we can see where we are and go back and work on it. Putting some light side on the hills back here.
You're working thin to thick.
I'm sorry?
You are working thinly.
Well, it's opaque, but I am kind of roughing it in now, so we can go back and thicken it up, you know, but it's still right out of the tube. I'm not thinning this down at all, but just kind of getting an idea of what this is going to be like here. The hills, the California hills have this great kind of big body shapes. Reclining body shapes is what I see. Okay, I'm going to move on now and do some of this landscape down here will be like plowed fields or kind of greenish. Again, I don't know if everyone was here when we were talking about this, but I thought I would pick this subject because it has a lot of variety. It has hillside, it has landscapes, it's got foliage, and it's got buildings, and so it's a good variety of stuff. We've got a little roadway back here that's kind of in the picture. It's got some tree line and some buildings and stuff back in here. I want to put some variety into that so it doesn't get too monotonous. My little buildings here, I'm going to spare out or I can rough everything in, and then you can see what see where you want to put detail. And I'm going to warm up the landscape here and the foot of the hills here a little bit, get some more value in there. So I'm adding a little bit of cad orange to this sap green, and it gives you a darker green, kind of a brownish green. And I don't know what we're going to make out of that, but we can establish as a line going up. Am I keeping out of the way of the? Not really, am I? I'm going to move this.
No,
around.
Everything's going fine, Ed. I have a question for you. Regular oil paints, traditional oil paints tend to dry darker. Do the water soluble oils dry darker, or are they consistent to what we see now?
I have not noticed that, but I know I used to paint in commercial work. I did use gouache. We call it tempera, Winsor Newton tempera, and you had to judge that because they did dry darker, and not only that, you had to, when you blended them, sometimes with it was water mix, it was water soluble, and blending them would also not look right when you did it, and then it would smooth out when it dried. So there was a certain amount of judgment you had to have to paint with that. And I've never noticed it with oil, so it may shift, but it's not enough to cause a problem. I've never noticed that. In fact, I'd never heard that before.
You can't use this type of paint oil and another type, can you? Like the solvent kind?
No, you can't mix them, no. But you can paint this over acrylic.
Oh,
You can always, and by the way, the tone I put on here was an acrylic wash. The drawing was oil paint, but the acrylic wash is, I think your demo last time did the same thing, where it gives you a base so you don't end up with a white canvas, and it also breaks down the surface a little bit, so you have a smoother, so you're not, the canvas isn't soaking up your product, your paint. I'm just gonna fool around with some little stuff here. And we'll break that up a little bit too. I don't know, that line going across there isn't the greatest. And we've got some paint in our brush here. I'm going to use that and rough in some foreground stuff here. A lot of times you have stuff on your palette and you can use it up doing other things. I'm going to clean out my brush here and put these, rough in these dark, got a lot of eucalyptus trees going across here in the photo, these guys here, and it's going to help to focus our attention on the focal point here, which will be these buildings and all this. Turns out the actual photograph works in our favor here, because I'm going to add more trees on this side, but it'll help to bring those buildings out. You put darks behind lights, you know, and it brings them forward. You probably already know that. It's a good thing to remember.
always good to hear it again.
Well, stop me if I'm telling you things you already know. I know you're probably a good painters in your group there, and I don't want to sound like I'm creating new stuff. It's so for the eucalyptus, I'm still using my big fat brush here. I'm going to put some sap green and put a little bit of burnt sienna in it. Makes a real dark. I'm going to kind of lightly put this in and see how many accidents I can get with my big brush here.
Happy accidents, right?
Happy accidents.
Happy accidents. So we have a question. The surface that you're painting on, is it canvas or wood or?
It's a canvas board. Well, I can't take it off here.
No,
Right?
don't do that.
It's just a plain old canvas board.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, this helps to define, and we can go ahead and take this out if we don't like it, but put some loose ends here on this stuff. Am I still out of the way for everybody? Helps define our little building setup here. We can go back and bring that background, this background stuff, and take some of the trees out if we want, or soften the edges, or. Again, I don't want to make this too regular back here either. We have some trees poking up. Actually, these eucalyptus trees here in the picture are pretty high, and I mean, some of those eucalyptus get really tall. So we can do almost anything we want with them. But I want to get this element stuck in here, so I'm trying to see what we got. And then some of these hang over the road, little road going down through here, and we're gonna. And we'll pick out the lights and things on these later, but right now I just want to kind of rough them in to see what we got. A little bit more of that sap green and burnt sienna makes a nice warm, dark warm green. Or you could use ultramarine. A lot of this the color stuff is the same in watercolors. I mean, you probably already know that, but the nice thing about watercolors is you can get grains and stains, and you don't get that in. And you have to be a lot more careful too with putting things down. Although you can change things. I mean, there's all kinds of methods of changing the watercolor, so you don't have to commit. I'm going to run this right over those that line running across there, so we don't. Again, this is very rough, and we'll go back and fiddle with it, the design of it and everything. And when you paint over this background color we have, it also kind of softens up the edge. You get a little mix at the edge, so it doesn't look like a cutout. I'm gonna put in some sunlight on this. Landscape here. You get some get a really beautiful light green with a cat orange pale and a little bit of sap green, not too much, and a little titanium white, a real electric green. We're probably doing this before we should, but I want to get as much roughed in here as Jolene's got a time limit, and she'll beat me up if I don't get it done here. So more of that pale.
Yeah, I know where you live.
Okay. I'm going to put some of this warm back in here too. This is kind of pale.
Not only are you thinking light against dark, but you're thinking warm against cool.
Yeah, you know what? I don't follow too many rules, but I kind of look at the painting as it's progressing, and I just feel like it needs some well, it needs some brush variety back in here. We're going to enhance that later, but um, I don't really I don't follow too many rules in painting. I generally look at it and see what it needs, and I mean these are just preliminary things here, but for example, I mean, this is too icy back here and doesn't really look landscapey. And I can't really see in the picture here too much, but I see there looks like plowed fields back here that we can simulate, but that's not really what we really want to pay attention to is this area right here and where the darks and the lights will be the most intense. And then we're gonna play down these buildings on the side and maybe the trees on this side, and we'll bring some big, well, I'll as we go along. So I was going to say something about the foreground, but I'll save that. So this could be a regular macadam road here or not. I don't know. I'm going to try some. You can make a good looking road out of a little bit of titanium white, some French Ultra, and a little bit of violet. That violet color, by the way, that I use is a dioxazine purple. This thing is a killer, so you have to be very careful with it. it'll go a long way, but for some reason I bought a big tube of it and probably last me the rest of my life. So I've got a little bit of that, and you put that in the road and put a little bit of cad orange in there too, and you get kind of a convincing road color. Let's just see what we got here. A little cad orange and French Ultra. And I don't know, a little bit of that violet. We'll see what, we can always shift it back and forth. We're just playing games here with it. You can gray out your French Ultra, by the way, the blue, with cad orange. And I always like to gray. I never use black, number one, but you can shift your grays and darks by using lighter colors instead of just white sometimes. Anyway, we've got this mix of French Ultra, and this is just to get the element of the road in here, and we can fool around with that later, but I just want to get it down so we have a color scheme going. And it has a little cad orange in it. As it goes around this corner down here and gets farther away, I'm going to lighten that up so we get some definition. And we'll probably, we don't want to line, shooting us right off the painting either. So we'll take care of that later, but let's get a roughed in thing here. Let's see what that looks like in our composition. I'm going to rough in the structures now, and I'm going to have a shadow side. Our shadows will be on this side here. The light will be coming almost straight into these buildings. So still using the big number 12, bright. I like the brights because they're shorter bristle, and they spring back, so you don't have any stuff laying over like that. You want a nice you get a lot more crisp painting structure that way. You trowel the painting around, really, of the paint. So I'm going to use just titanium white and a little cerulean blue for that shadow side of the structures. make your shadows darker than you think they'll be. On a white building, this is mostly a white building. Let's just try this, and we can shift it around later, but again, I don't mix a lot on the palette. I like to mix on the canvas. And we can change that if it doesn't, but I always try to make my shadows darker than they might appear, because you don't have the rest of the building yet. So you're kind of guessing. And I'd rather guess dark than and then lighten it up. You don't have to be too careful here. Let's see this. There's another little structure down here that's not going to get too much attention, but actually we could darken that down a little bit more, I think. At least, you know, the trick of darkening your shadows and things closest to the highlight, and then you can back off as your structure or whatever you're painting goes away from that. But that way you get a real focus. So this is going to be almost dead white with a little bit of cad yellow hue in it. So that's a darker, kind of a darker yellow. I'm going to darken it more. And be pretty loose with this. I mean, the other trick is do a loose underpainting and not care too much about how things fit, and putting detail on top of that makes the detail more detailed. If you probably have heard that. I don't know, I'm not saying it right, but you put your underpainting, make sure your underpainting is loose and thoughtful and the right composition and everything, but the detail you put on top of it is going to look better on a loosely done background. Try it if you haven't tried that. Just don't be too careful in the beginning, and it pays off. And also go from one step to the next in your finish before you think you're ready. I've always found that to be another good idea. If you're careful all the way through the painting, it doesn't have that nice spontaneous look to it. These other buildings here are going to be on the gray side, because I don't want them to be as important. So I'll just mix up some, use that dioxazine purple and gray them out a little bit. Maybe a little bit of permanent rose. By the way, this permanent rose is a great color. Instead of using a alizarin crimson, it's a cleaner, you get the same mixing properties, but it's a cleaner version of a alizarin crimson. I don't know if they make that in watercolor or not, but it has a lot of good properties to it that make a cleaner version, and mixes a lot better than alizarin crimson. I'm going to put a little cad orange in there with this. Let's see, this is a French Ultra, a little cad orange, and a little bit of violet, and some of this permanent rose, and titanium white. And we're just gonna, I'm gonna put this on here. I'm not, it's kind of grayed out. And we're gonna leave it that way for now and see how it works. The roof colors, we can do kind of a version of that. Put a little bit of cat orange in there to gray it down a little bit. Again, we're going to shift colors around if they don't look right together. That's why it's nice to rough everything in, and we don't want everything to look the same color. So we'll go in and change that around a little bit if we want. The other structures over here, we can maybe darken the roof color down a little bit so that the important thing with your structures is to get the drawing right. I'm going to lighten this roof a little bit so I get a little bounce between here and the one behind it. You get your drawing right, and you can take a lot of liberties. That funny little roof on this thing back here. I'm going to have to go to a smaller brush for this other stuff here. And again, here we got the value is almost the same as the trees. So the nice thing is we don't have anything in concrete yet. We can go back and darken the trees there if we want, or maybe not. Maybe it looks all right that way. I mean, kind of playing it by ear here. So I'm going to take some of this. So it's the clean water. I'm going to take some of that tree stuff away because we're going to lighten that. It'll be part of our little structure coming through.
Could you remind us again as to the brushes that you're using? You said Princeton, and was there something else?
It's a serial number, and be sure and get the other ones I don't like. There's another series. They're Princeton, same. They have a different color handle. These have a kind of a dark charcoal handle, and they're a 63 series, 6300 series, and it's got a B on here. I think the B is for bright. But look for the 6300 series, and there's another brush that looks almost like this, Princeton, that has a different color handle, and it's has a different number on it. But I've tried them and I don't like them. So
Thank you.
And brushes are personal. You probably have your own choices, but I found these they really hit the mark. I'm gonna have to go to a smaller brush here. Get this little roof line with this roof line to carry through here. So again, that's pretty loose. We got tree color coming in there and everything, so we'll fix that later. I just want to get everything composed. All right, now I'm gonna just roughly put in the front. The building fronts, which will be, this is our focus. So this area right in here is where we want to look. So this is important. And I'm going to take regular old titanium white, and I'm going to put some of that cad yellow hue, or cad yellow hue, which is just an oranger version of a cad yellow, the lemon yellow. It's not called lemon yellow, but it's the one we used here in the little highlights for the light. And I'm gonna finally switch to a smaller brush, which we'll come back to the big one in a minute. So this is a number 10, And I'm going to rough in the fronts. You can always, I like to warm up my whites, never paint right out of the tube, but if you, unless you're going to make some highlights or something, and when you do that, you use this cad yellow in there, and you can do this with you don't use white in watercolors, but any of your lights like that, you put a little, especially outdoors, you got a sunshine light, and if the air is clear, you get a nice yellowy light, warm light. And what it does is gives you another step. If you want to really highlight something, you put some dead white in there, then it really pops off the page and you can get some dimension that way. If you start out with white, then you have nowhere to go. So we're just going to kind of lay this all in.
Did you say that again, Ed?
Say that again. When you, I like to do this, when you paint white buildings or anything white automobile or truck or something, and you put a little cad yellow in there with the white, then you can have another step to make the highlights lighter. If you start out with a dead white, titanium white, let's say, you have nowhere to go because you only have that value is the maximum white on the page, and you can step the white down with other things too. But I always like especially outdoor on a white structure, make it look like you can always make it lighter. But if you start out with a nice warm white like this, you have another step to go. If you put dead white on it, I can show you that it really there's quite a step between that and dead white. If you put a dead white on there, then you've got that extra dimension, color dimension, value dimension. Does that make any sense? Because I used to use that.
Makes a lot of sense. I like that. I'm writing that down.
Yeah. Now I've got that blob on there, but it's all right. It can go away. And here's a sloppy thing I did. So we can, we'll make some more dimension definition in the buildings here as we go along. This might be in shadow down here anyway. I don't know yet. Now these structures over here, I'm going to step down because we don't want to pay too much attention to that. So we'll just see what happens with this kind of mid-value. Makes these both the same. We can come back and change them later, or make some more variety on them so they're not dead center white. I mean the same. I might even darken that down a little bit. I don't want to get too detailed here because we're not there yet. So I'll put a little French Ultra on the bottom part here and separate it. That's another thing. I never use line work on a painting to define things. It's got to be, it should be value, lights and darks. That's how you really should separate your, so it's kind of a little gradation there. And it might be, it's out of drawing really, but I'll creep in here a little bit more. Anyway, we can fool around with that. In fact, I'm going to throw some junk in here in the front just to define everything. I'm going to get some, while we're here, I'm just going to do little bit of work on separating these buildings out a little bit. Couple of little lines and stuff in here. There's a roof, we got a little roof detail here that we can chop some of this stake off. It's all lights and darks, so. Okay, now we can start fiddling with go back and work on the hills a little bit. That way you don't get bored doing one thing. You can jump around and do other stuff. I put a little more green in that. Those hills. Maybe get some value in some of those little, usually the trees grow in these little, which makes sense because that's where the water collects, but some definition in the. So I'm going to put some, just make a darker version of that, some cerulean blue and sap green. Make some more colors here. So we're doing the same, using the same paint here as we did in light and shadow on the hills, just to get some definition in the, there'll be little trees and things in those. Like that. Oh. Just accidentally hit some of that purple stuff, and I think, leave that in there. Why not? Starting to get some definition in here. So I'm using a little bit of French Ultra now to darken this. Get some definition on the hills. And put some darks in here for the foliage. A little bit bright. To gray that down a little bit. Okay, then we can get some, let's try a little bit more definition on that little road thing back there. And maybe interrupt it with some. So this is sap green and a little bit of cat orange. Get some kind of foliage stuff going back here. Again, it's just indication of something going on back there, so you don't have to be too careful. In fact, I think what I'm going to do is, I don't want it all looking the same either. And we had some little buildings and things we can throw in there. If there's, in the picture here, we've got some little white structures and fences and things. It just adds a little bit of interest to the, so that you don't spend all your time looking at our little buildings here. There are other things going on in the world. So I'm gonna take that white, titanium white, and put a little bit of the cad yellow hue in it. So we get a kind of a warm, and then drop in some little structure stuff back here that we can put in or take out or whatever we want with it. Maybe darken some of that roadway stuff down a little bit. we can harden those edges a little bit with our trees if we want later. So these are just things you made up. Maybe drag some of that out into the field here and give it some definition, because our perspective is really a 1-point perspective here. So take some liberties here with these. Could be this could be a structures or something out here, some little silos, or I don't know yet. Just leave that alone for a while. Brighten up our little road back here so we can see it better. We'll work on the trees a little bit now. Add stuff on there. God, this is a problem with that purple. You get it on stuff, you get it on your brushes and you can't. Sneaks up on you. I have the purple right next to my cerulean blue. It's just, I probably should put it in a separate palette somewhere. Okay, wasting time here doing this pedestrian. Okay, let's get some more definition and maybe work on this little background before we do the trees. I'll put some maybe a little yellow ochre, which I don't use very much, but we need some variety in that landscape back there. So just darken this up a little bit and put a little bit of different color in there. It helps to give, I'm not going to spend too much time detailing this, but it gives some form to that big bunch of grass back here. Darken that down a little bit. Make it more interesting. You can practice doing this kind of stuff. It's not much to it, but it make things look convincing, but when there's nothing there, it's just light and dark. Oop, it probably is too dark, but anyway, push it into the background. So it looks like there's things going on there, but there isn't. I'll help with our perspective over here. I don't know what this is. We're just putting stuff in there. It's far enough away so you don't have to spend a lot of time detailing it. Just make it convincing. Okay, I'm gonna go to my smaller still brush here and see we only have about a half hour left or 20 minutes. Jolene, she went away. Oh, there she is. How much time do we have left?
20 minutes is good. We usually end around 5:30, Ed.
Okay. All right. Well, we're not going to be able to finish here, but I want to get the main I'm gonna work on the trees a little bit with some dark sap green and
I'm going to ask you the question that as an artist, I don't like getting, but some people are different how they paint. About how long do you spend on a painting about this size?
it's hard to, I've had that asked by in the studio, and I don't know. I don't keep a time clock, but it's I would say probably maximum, I don't know, maybe 8 hours. Depends how well it goes. So I might just everything fall together, and but generally for something this size, probably about 8 hours, 6 hours of actual work, and not just gazing at it and deciding what to do and things like that. So yeah, I would say probably 8 hours would be safe. I never pay attention though. I mean, probably everybody does this. They paint and see what happens. So
I tried to keep track a couple of times and then I forget, and then I have no idea.
exactly. Well, that's part of the nice thing about painting is you can. I heard something. I wasn't going to bring this up, but Kurt Vonnegut, I think this guy, a friend of mine, quoted him. I can't remember the exact quote, but when you're painting, when you do any of the arts, music, writing, painting, especially painting, when you are painting seriously, you go outside and you look at things, and a passerby may just look at a tree and go, oh, it's a tree. When you're painting and intent on making things look right, or even if you're not, I mean, you pay attention to the way things are, and you see things differently. You look at a tree and you see the light and shadow, and you see the limbs and the little holes through the sky and things like that. And it just makes a richer way of looking at things. And I thought that was pretty neat. That and if you're a musician or a writer, you pay attention to the phrasing and because the outcome, the detailing and what goes into it. So it's I find myself doing it all the time. You look at anything, light and shadow, the way palm tree looks against a building, the shadow, the strong light and everything. And you do appreciate things the way they are a lot more than if you weren't involved in the arts. So anyway.
No, thank you. What size canvas are you working on?
What kind of canvas?
No, what size?
This is a 12 by 16.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna work on these trees a little bit and put some light in them in a minute. Right now, I'm gonna put some more dark and get some more definition and stuff in here. Maybe true up some of this, some of these buildings. Trying to leave the edges a little bit loose. Get enough variety in the foliage here. Get really some black darks right next to our buildings here. And true up this little mistake here and build up a lot more pigment and maybe throw in a little bit of that permanent rose in there too.
I found a Kurt Vonnegut quote that I think might be what you're talking about.
Really? Oh, no
It said-
kidding.
It says, go into the arts. I'm not kidding. The arts are not the way to make a living. They are a very human way of making life more bearable. Practice an art, no matter how well or badly. It is a way to make your soul grow. For heaven's sake, sing in the shower, dance to the radio, tell stories, write a poem to a friend, even a lousy poem. Do it well as you possibly can, and you will get an enormous reward. You will have created something.
That is exactly right. Exactly right.
It's
And
kind
I
of what
don't
you've been
wonder-
talking about, Ed.
It's exactly what, that's the quote. I couldn't paraphrase it, but it increases your appreciation for no matter what your level of skill is, it doesn't matter, because if you're if you're involved in it, you can't help notice the world differently. That's great. I'm glad you looked that up. So here we are chewing up everything a little bit.
I'll email it to you.
Oh, good. This is a good friend of mine found that somewhere, and I was just talking to him the other day on the phone. I'm just messing around here with this. I want to kind of obscure this part of the road a little bit and give it some more interest. Yeah, that's great that you found that. Okay, now, well, I'm not done yet. Your edges on the trees, just throw out some little dots and things where the foliage doesn't, it's not a cookie cutter. It's a living thing. And then we'll go back in. Running out of time here. Okay, another big broad stroke thing I want to do. First, I want to, if we can do this, it's hard to do sometimes in wet paint, but if you're a plein air painter, you can do it. I don't know if I can pull it off, but I want to put some light sides to these trees here. And for that, I'm going to use that same cad yellow hue and sap green. And I'm going to lighten it with the cad yellow and not with white. That's another little trick to lighten colors. Sometimes use pigment instead of white. Use another color, a lighter color, if it's opaque enough. Sometimes you have to add white to make a color opaque. Okay, so this is a little wash of cad yellow hue and sap green, and it's going to give us, I'm going to try and palette knife this on with the brush so you don't pick up too much of the background. We can go back in and change this, but the basic idea, sap green and load it up with that cad yellow light. And you can, if you make a kind of a travel-y look to the thing, sometimes just leave it. I'm going to leave that dark there because it goes back, and then bring some of the foreground foliage into the light a little bit. More yellow. Maybe fix that little roof boo-boo there. And then make some shadows across our roadway. These trees, we're gonna make that pretty dark.
Ed, do you know what size that canvas is?
It's a 12 by 16. I just get them Dick Blick. It's called Blick Company or something now. Put some shadows across the road here. Just some French Ultra. And maybe hit that with, take some of the road color away and mix it in with it. I don't get too predictable here. And then I'm gonna mix up a big shadow thing and put it across the foreground. And it's a trick, but it helps you to go into the painting, especially a broad landscape like this. Mix up a big shadow color with some sap green and red sienna. And maybe a little bit of cat orange. And enough green in it so it looks green. And then just, this is where you hold your breath. If you've done mostly finished painting, you just grind this thing across here for a foreground shadow because the light's coming from this side. So you pick up some of the paint you put down already. You can throw in a little bit of interest here too. A little cat orange on there kind of turns it a little bit brown and with the sap green. And we'll see how much we want to leave of that, but maybe try some more of that in here. Make it a little mysterious. When we come to our road here, we've got to shift. So some little mistakes in here. Or bring some light into it too. I don't know, just fooling around here. So we had that road made with French Ultra and a little purple and a little cat orange. So we'll mix up a darker version of that. Not too dark. Anyway, the idea. Well, we got that color mixed. Brush marks out of there. Might give some definition to the road a little bit. Some tracks in it. Okay, I know we're out of time here.
Yeah, if you want to show everybody the finished one that you did,
Oh, yeah, I'll grab that in a second here.
sure.
Anyway, we could go on until the cows come home with fooling with this.
And that was why I asked, how long do you spend on a painting like this, so that we know that we're just getting this like little glimpse of this moment in your painting process.
A glimpse is a good good expression. That's exactly right. Because I invented most of it, but it's what I remember. And it reminds me of, in fact, I called the painting that. It reminds me of the Sunday drive my parents and I used to take on Sunday. My brother and I, and sit in the back seat of the car, and that's what we did. We didn't have any TV. So we took a Sunday drive.
Well, we have a request to also see your palette, but I just adore, I love the geometric buildings in front of all the
Oh.
landscape. It's beautiful.
Okay, well, I can't get this right here. I don't know.
No, pull it away where it was before. That's good, right there. Nice. I love the light you got on the meadow in front of it and on those tree or on the houses. I see what you were talking about the light white.
Yeah, well, and it's a simple idea. You put the darks against the lights, and
Right.
that's where you look. And you don't look over here that much unless when you're done, then you look back here and you go, oh, look at, there's a road back there. Anyway.
Very nice, Ed. Very nice.
So this is going to be a little tricky. Can you show us your palette somehow? That might be changing the camera. I don't know.
Well, I had it taped down here so the darn thing didn't roll around, but it only take a second. Boy, this tape really sticks to your gloves. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, this is the palette, and I use a if I had it.
You use the sponge underneath all that, or just palette paper?
I use a paper palette.
I have one of those and it has a sponge that it comes with that you can wet to keep it.
Oh, that's a good idea. Sure, yeah. I don't do that. In fact, I spritz it sometime with a
Water.
spray bottle.
Yeah, I kind of find that sponge thing gets moldy and doesn't quite work so well, but.
Yeah, well, yeah. About the
It
palette,
looks like you set that up like a color wheel. Is that true? Did he set that up like a color wheel?
I can't hear that one.
Let me try to ask, did you?
Set up like a color
And I
wheel.
think you're too close to the mic or something.
She's asking if you set your palette up to be like the color wheel.
It kind of resembles it, but I do this. The order I have here is what I use all the time. Because when you're painting, I found that if you keep your colors in the same place all the time, it makes it more, even when I'm plein air painting, I set my palette up the same way. And it is kind of the little color wheel series, but it's easier. You don't have to think. The colors are all where they're supposed to be, and you'll never make a mistake. Because, the darks over here, you could easily pick up the wrong one. In fact, I did. I was looking at my cerulean blue here, and I picked up some of that accent purple, and man, that's the killer. So, and I always put the white in the middle because it gives you more area to mix or to grab.
And
it.
you think you can use this for 2 or 3 days?
If I close this up, I could use this the rest of the week.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, so it keeps pretty well. These colors act just like regular oils. So I don't know what how to explain there's any difference, because as far as I'm concerned, they're the same. I'm getting some weird light on the painting now, but it's coming in from the outside. Anyway, I'd probably go ahead and finish this. In fact, I think it's turning out better than what I had already. So anyhow, so I hope if you any more questions or anything that
That was your chance for questions. Tamara says thank you.
well, I could have put a lot more detail in these buildings in there, but didn't really have time. But there's all kinds of shenanigans you could pull with the building, the windows, and I put some some boxes here. You put old tractors and stuff, and I put a little fence along there, and you could just and the palm tree thing it just says California like nothing else. So sometimes they throw those in, or you can put little smoke details for things going on in the background. Once you have the pattern on the page the way you want it, things kind of fall in place, and then you can. The problem then is to know when to stop, and there's nobody around to tell you that. You have to decide when you're going to put your name on it and put it away. So anyhow, well, it was great. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it, and I have to reconstruct.
Shed a lot of light on stuff, Ed. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And people are saying thank you in the chat, for sharing your studio and your time with us and letting us watch over your shoulder
I hope I didn't get in the way too much, but
as you work.
anyway.
Well, how can you not? I think you did a really good job of
I think so too. I think you did a great job.
staying to the side. So thank you so much. And
Well, I thank you guys for helping me set this up, because the way I had it in the beginning was not going to work. In fact, we're still seeing a mirror image here, and I don't know how to fix that.
we'll
It will
figure it
be
out
all
for next time.
Anyway.
We'll figure it
okay.
out. So thank you so much. Everybody who's interested in a sponge, read what Marley wrote in the chat. And so thank you so much. And
Okay, thanks, Ellen. Bobby.
see our members next month. Thank you, Ed.
Okay.
Thanks, Ed. Bye.
Bye-bye.